There are so many people out there who have such amazing potential to be great artists, but who don't do it or don't share their work because of one major factor, and that is artistic fear. Now, this is just something that comes with the territory of the arts. It's that self-doubt or uncertainty that what you're doing might not be good enough. And instead of letting this paralyze you, there's a way you can turn this fear into a weapon to drive you on to do better and better work. So let's talk about that today. Hi, I'm Dare. I live and work in Hollywood, and I've been around art and filmmaking for the majority of my life. And I like to do 1 or 2 episodes a week where I get to talk about my experiences, offer advice, answer questions, or collaborate with other artists on the subject of filmmaking. Now, you can click here to subscribe, or you can click here to sign up for the newsletter, which will basically give you goodies such as free stock footage or project files that I use in the tutorials and other stuff that you might like. Today's free goodies is some free stock shots of the Golden Gate Bridge out in San Francisco, and I've included a few different angles and a few different image sizes for you. And these are some pretty cool shots that you can have for free just for signing up. Okay, so let's talk about artistic fear for a moment. The first thing you have to understand is that it is a good thing. What, you say? No, I'm serious. It is a good thing, and here's why. I consider artistic fear the artist's version of the divine doubt, that constant gnawing uncertainty that is what I'm doing good enough? Is it going to be looked at well or poorly or whatever? And I consider this a million times better than the person who just thinks that anything they do just happens to be amazing art and unabashedly share it with everyone as God's greatest gift to the arts. Now, I'm not saying rain on those people's parades, and I'm not talking about the subjective message of art, which can be interpreted as anything. I'm talking about technical skill necessary to create impact in the majority of people to think that something is a great piece of art. I would much rather have the fear than have the lack of self-awareness that goes with no fear whatsoever. Now, why is this? Because artistic fear means that you have taste. It means that you can recognize that there are ingredients that go into whatever art you're producing to make something that it is considered great. But the problem with it is when you let your fear consume you to the point that you don't do anything or you don't share anything with other people. Now let's take a specific example of this. I want you to listen to this music track from Michael A. Levine and Man Parrish. And just listen to it, close your eyes so you don't have other environmental stimuli occurring. Just close your eyes and listen to this music for the next few minutes and visualize in your mind what this story could be. Okay, so when Michael and Mann originally contacted me to do this short film on the piece so that they could launch their new album, I'm thinking, okay, these are the guys that helped pioneer electronic music. They do major television shows and classical concerts and all this great stuff. I really can't let them down. I need to do something that's big and as exciting as the music is. And when I listen to it, I sort of get this epic scale and this small scale. So I started envisioning helicopter shots and closing down streets and this huge production for this thing of what they really need is a short film to launch their album. Now, the problem with this is that I had no budget and I was trying to call in a bunch of favors. And when you do this, everybody that you're asking for favors is kind of working on their own schedules and trying to align a bunch of favors to one date doesn't usually work out so well, which is why you usually need money to produce something. But ultimately, after weeks of procrastinating, the actress that I wanted to use had to leave. Basically, she was leaving the next day, and these guys had to launch their album. So it came down to, I had basically one day to do something or to do nothing at all. And this is sort of what led me to crystallize the idea of what was worse than the fear of something that I did artistically not being good enough. And here's what it is: not doing any art at all. I can't think of anything worse for me personally than going through life and not doing what I love because of my fear of what other people might think of it. I think that's a fate worse than death for an artist. And I would much rather be the person who dreamed big and maybe not quite achieve it, but who got better with each piece of art. Now, that being said, I ultimately decided, okay, I'm going to do this. What can I shoot and visualize and edit and put together in one day? And I did. Now, that's fine, and it sounds great and all, but there's one other factor you have to put into this equation, which I want to talk about after you look at the short film. So go ahead and watch the short film, and then we'll talk about what you have to balance this attitude of just going ahead and doing it with so that ultimately you get the correct balance. So watch the film. right, so obviously that's not God's gift to cinema. But Michael and Mann loved it. It helped them launch their album, so it did what it needed to do. Now, am I supremely pleased with the quality of that production? No, I'm not, because I can do better, and I have done better with slightly better equipment and slightly better planning. Now, am I happy that I did it at all? Yeah, actually I am. I hadn't made a short film for a bit, and it was good to stretch the creative muscles. So I did have to overcome my fear of this not being good enough to actually doing it, but there is one other factor that I had to balance here, and this simply comes, that could have been a hell of a lot worse, given no money and no resources. But I can go ahead and stand on a platform and say, I did it in less than a day from start to finish, including edit, and I had no money and one camera and one lens and blah, blah, blah. And really, maybe other filmmakers might appreciate it, maybe they might not, but for sure, one person who doesn't really care is the general public. They just look at what they see and decide whether or not they like it. They don't know what it took to get it. They either know that it's good enough for them or not. So what's the point? Don't just crap shit out. Make sure that you take the art that you're doing and make it as good as you possibly can and still get it out there. Don't not get it out there. Don't go to the other extreme of just throwing anything out there. Make it as good as you possibly can and always strive to do better on the next piece. Okay, so let's recap rapidly. You have to overcome this fear as an artist of doing something that isn't quite good enough or doesn't measure up or that people might hate. And the way you can do that is by realizing that a far worse fate is to not do what you love because of the fear of what other people might think. Now, you have to balance this with not just throwing any old thing out there, but actually working on your art so that you get it as good as you possibly can with the resources that you have and still get it out there and share it in a reasonable length of time. Now, there's one last thing that I want to leave you with on this, which is if there's one certainty in the world of arts, it's not that people will like your work or that people will love your work, but it's that there will be people who hate your work. And you should wear that hate like a multicolored coat of splendor. Because if there's a second certainty in the world of art, is that most of that hate is born out of jealousy. So enjoy having haters. It means you're doing something worth noticing. And then focus on the people who love your work and who like it enough to share it with other people. Those are the people you're doing the art for. Not just yourself, but for the people who appreciate it and are uplifted by what you do or who learn from what you do. So focus on making art for them and focus on getting better and better with everything you do. They'll notice it and they'll spread the word about your work. All right, so that's it for today's episode. Don't forget, you can click here to subscribe or click here to sign up for the newsletter and get a hold of that free Golden Gate Bridge footage, or you can click over here to get another episode. Thanks again for watching, and I hope I see you again next time on Dare Cinema.